Welcome back to Red Orb Menace. I made a bird lady, or a Corvian orphan, if you will. So we all know how Pontiff Sullivan was the orphan born inside the painting. Well, I like that idea, so I made another orphan character who is a human raised by the Corvians in the slums of the Corvian settlement. A forgotten child raised by a forgotten, wretched people whose own culture has been subjugated by the likes of Londor, using the image of Priscilla, of course, in the form of Lady Frida, to obscure their history. But this is a character that originated as a luck build. You probably saw it in a previous video where I was messing around with some things. I like the luck build, but I'm not good at the luck build. I know some people swear by it. At the level I was playing at, though, it was a lot more work to get a lot less. Was really how I felt about it. I was relying more on aggression to apply status elements and bleed. And against the opponents I was fighting, the footage was questionable, although I did have some good invasions there. So I went back to the drawing board with Ida, the Crowling. She's 20 levels lower in this form, but her focus is more on faith and dex, which I found a lot more rewarding with the stat investment I was using. I had to make a couple of sacrifices, of course, with her stats, but for the most part I was very happy with how this came out, and I very much like the Corvian weapons. I never really got to use them too much in the, 3 years this game's been out? So, in the effort to discover new things, I found myself quite enamored with the Corvian scythe and the crow quills, and even the great knife. Now the Corvian settlement actually is interesting to invade. I know it can be awkward to invade in here sometimes just because of the spawn points and the fact that if both bosses are alive, or if one of them is, the level itself doesn't really lock you into one area over the other. And if that bridge is down, of course, you can get yourself in a situation where you're cut off from the party. But for the most part, it's a cool area. I like it. There's a lot of vertical combat scenarios that could play out depending on where you are. Very great for the cat ring. I think he's about to run back here, this fallen knight, so I'm trying to catch him through the animation. But no, he's just unwilling to continue fighting until his shortcut's open. And then he's very willing to fight me. And I like hosts like this. I'll have another one in a minute after this that's the complete opposite. But a lone host is willing to stand his ground. I am more than okay with them opening their shortcut before we have our little fight. And this is a very one-sided fight for him. He's got an NPC enemy who is quite challenging at this level, and he's got an invader, so I'm not trying to get too tough with him. I do break out that Sorig ring, which breaks stamina guards, although he's not really using the shields for blocks. I probably should have used a Chloranthy ring, honestly, and no Hornet ring, as you can see. But the Barker Bombay did work, so not only is he willing to fight me, I can tell maybe he doesn't have the best PvP experience, so I might be playing with my food a little bit. But it gave me a good opportunity to test out the L1 thrust and slash combo with the crow quills. And again, I don't really use these weapons too often, so this was a nice experience getting used to a fast weapon like that. But a good game to that guy. On the other end of the spectrum, I invaded this guy named Deepfake here, who was very clearly running a in-the-works PvP build. I've noticed that he's running around with the dual katanas you get from one of the Black Hands as well as the hat. And while it's entirely possible players can come into this DLC area at any point of the main game, at the level I'm at, I have to suspect a little bit of trade down based on his health bar right there with a critical backstab. That's the type of health bar I would notice from a PvPer. Now, why he's unwilling to fight me when his build is suspiciously PvP-centric, I don't understand. Some players just want to invade and they don't want to deal with invaders. So, you know, go soak your head, Deepfake. Now I catch this guy in a very precarious position. He has just embarked on the downward path through the trees here to get to the bottom of the painted world, so he can fight his grave tender boss with the big wolf. But once he's been invaded, he realizes, I don't want any of the stress on this particularly nasty vertical area, and very correctly decides to go right back up the ladder to seek a phantom to summon. Now I could have been a jerk and trolled him with some throwing knives right here, but I figured there's a better opportunity for it. So instead I have some fun with some branches, and I allow him to summon an ally and come back down the ladder and get ahead of me, so I'll be behind them on the path here. Now sometimes I do this because I want to see what players do, and I wasn't necessarily trying to troll these guys. And you can see I even put on my cat ring expecting to do some plunging or downward attacks, and even if I miss I can roll out and get to a safe spot. But none of that really happened. I got myself in a good position whilst they jumped down to the lower branch, and it only took one urn to set him off his footing, and that was it. And unfortunately that's usually what happens down here. But that's all I got for the Corvian area, or the DLC area. Let me show you some of the tomfoolery that happened in Erythiel, another snowy, winter-friendly area. I invaded this player named Mia. Now Mia was rocking the dried finger with password buddies, hoping to get the most amount of players in a stretch here, going through Erythiel. And embarrassingly, I get myself caught very, very early into the invasion, while my ally Red is fighting a blue sentinel. And I'm not mindful of my health. That fire being tossed does real damage, and I get a cheeky gesture. Very, very embarrassing. The good news is, a dried finger world, as always, is more active, and I get right back into the fight. And at this point, my red phantom ally is still here. He has dispatched the blue in my quick absence. I have an opportunity here to redeem myself. You'll notice I took off the Untrue Dark Ring and put on the Tryhard Hornet Ring too. I do feel as if there's a difference between a regular host or questing party and people rocking trade down gear with password friends who want to go through an area in a challenging manner like they are with the dried finger going. I do feel as if the element of maybe lore or being part of a person's level is out the window, and this is more of a PvP marathon. So and I also feel as if you have another red phantom, sometimes you really want to consider taking off that ring to just make things easier from a visual point of view. Now I broke out the claws there, the talons, and I immediately got myself into a freak out combo where I slashed my ally. So to compensate, I'm going back to the crow quills here to focus on more forward thrusts and avoid any friendly fire. And the other red, who's already put in a lot of work so far, is rightfully backing away. I mean, he's earned his keep. I have to be the one to show up and do my part of it. And the urns, the lightning urns, are doing a lot of work for me. Now, one of the things about this setup here with my character is I can't trade with great swords and heavy-hitting weapons like what that host was just using on me. You know, the Corvian weapons, especially, even the scythe, which is my heaviest weapon. Give up my back right there, foolishly. But they don't have a whole lot of stopping power, and my character isn't exactly wearing enough equipment to have any kind of physical poise. So I have to be careful of trades. And as you can see, the red ally I have here, who's putting in a tremendous amount of effort, is dispatching another phantom. So at this point, I take it upon myself to be the one to bring the host down. This guy has done his job. It's my turn now to commit to something, and if I can kill anyone, it'll be the host. I've already taken out his Tears of Denial. At this point, I think the host knows what's coming. But they're holding the ground. Fair play. But those running R1s are brutal. So that was a GG, everybody. To Mia, the host, and to my ally Phantom. And I managed to catch this group again. It was a fun little saga that we had here. This is a little bit later in the level. Mia and her acolytes have moved further in after I was conducting invasions elsewhere. And I get into a situation here where the spawning has put me quite behind the party for some reason. Sometimes that's weird. You'll get into a spawn point just outside of range of where you think you should be. So I have to cover my ground to see exactly where everyone is, checking some enemies and some shortcuts to see what's open. And it's at this point when I start catching the health bar names, and I see that I have another red invader elsewhere in the level who's taking damage, and I'm getting double tongues from Dispatch Blue, so I know combat is happening somewhere and my guy is alone, so I have to make tracks. Now Lilith of the Deep is the other red phantom, and he's cornered the group, or the group's actually cornered him rather. Mia and her ally Phantom are holed up at the end of the Erythial Slave murder house, as I call it, and they're holding this choke point down pretty solidly, so I take that path by the ladder to get ahead of them on this little hidden spot, which I think most people ignore, and I managed to surprise attack them with some vertical attack, plunging attack rather, that breaks the chokehold they have, allowing my ally Lilith of the Deep to get in. Once again, I've broken Mia's Tears of Denial. I wrap up that one with a well-timed lightning urn. So that was a really fun marathon. Good game to everybody involved, good game to my allies. Really enjoyed that one.
Pretty good.
In this next invasion, I invade a strapping young fallen knight here in downtown Erythial, who's just acquired his trusty Shield of Want from Smoldering Lake. All he's missing to complete this picture is the Erythial Straight Sword. But I'll use this invasion to talk about the scythe that I'm using here, or just really Reaper class weapons in general. There's always a latent shield penetration factor, which you'll have at your disposal, whether you're using a one-hand or a two-hand strong attack, weak attack. There's always a percentage of damage you'll soak up if you're attacking turtles. So it's a great weapon against players that are being cautious and hiding behind a shield. It also pairs very well with the Night Slayer ring, which you get from Sorig, whether you get him in Catacombs or the Smoldering Lake. It's just a good pairing. I would always recommend having it on backup against those types of players. And the weapon art especially does a significant amount of damage for shield penetration. This whole lane from downtown Erythial all the way to the Church of Yorchka is pretty much a corridor of slaughter. You have to contend with some pretty tough enemies on the way. You've got those Erythial Knights, which are capable of doing some pretty significant damage really quickly. You have the Erythial Slaves with their claymores that have surprising reach. Then you've got those pretty scary Fire Witches, which can chase you away quite a ways, actually, with their fire abilities. Now, I ran into these two players sort of early in their path through this particular street, and they were rocking some kind of Silver Knight, Black Knight roleplay, which I thought was kind of cool, even though not all the parts matched up. And I was just talking about the Scythe and Reaper class weapons earlier with their ability to pick apart shields pretty well. What's happening to me here actually is more of an issue with spacing than anything. I'm just making a lot of blunders attempting to do trades. And again, this particular invasion was a little bit earlier with this character, earlier than some of the other clips anyway. So I'm kind of forced back a little bit into the enemies, which probably gives them the impression that I'm trying to use the level against them, when really what it was is I'm trying to get my bearings. So they wisely back off, thinking I'm that kind of invader. So I gotta make a point to ferry them back over here. I don't want to have a big duel at the bonfire. Fortunately, they don't go all the way back. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of chasing, throwing some fire bombs, giving them the okay, so they know, okay, this guy's not going to just use enemies against us. Now, I want you to pay attention to what happens right here very carefully. I go to roll away after that first attack, and you see that? One attack, that's me hitting the O button twice. And what actually happened was, I ended up hitting against the shield with some sort of collision. I didn't realize it at the time, but at this point in the invasion, I had the Armor of Thorns gauntlets equipped as part of an early fashion that I was trying with this character. Be advised, this is a thing that can totally happen if you have the Armor of Thorns pieces, even if it's just one armor piece. I did some testing after the fact to confirm that's what it was. I was really at a loss though during the invasion. And I actually ended up switching weapons here just out of sheer frazzlement, because quite frankly after 3 years of playing this game, that was a new effect for me. I just don't use that armor set at all. But the Crow Talons here are good weapons for perhaps a one-on-one encounter for two knights that are covering each other. And by that I mean two different players. I'm simply just allowing the other the other player, rather, to clear up some of the enemies. So I go back to the Crow Talons, which are way more effective. You're going to see another example of the Armor of Thorns Reaper combination in just a second here, since I go back to it. Again, I'm not quite sure what's causing it at this point. But that other Phantom is getting low on health, and I am getting quite thirsty to take the other player out. So it'll just be me and the host. There it is, see? Now spacing was my bane in this whole invasion. This was the invasion that sort of taught me a lot about using the scythes as well as Reaper class weapons. So trading with great swords and spacing with them for attacks, I learned a lot. Now with just the one player left, I'm using this as an opportunity to test out some of the other weapons. Again, this was an early venture for Ida the Crowling. God, that range. And this player is one of those types of players that are keen to blow their entire stamina bar to just R1 span. And again, I can't take those sorts of hits, so if I get tagged once, I'm probably going to get tagged twice, in some cases 3 times, which will become a problem in just a little bit. But I'm throwing different tools at this player, testing out certain things, taking way more damage from trades, playing foolishly. And this is just in here really so you folks can see the limitations on being too aggressive with these types of weapons. You have to pick your windows, pick your opportunities. This player, while not exactly as flexible with style as I am, are totally using their strengths against me and winning. And right there, I'm unable to get out of the combo chain from their greatsword. And that's it, folks. Just a few wombo combos, and that Black Knight will continue onward on their quest to link the first flame. Alright, I'm not really going to go on a long endeavor for this one, for the build stuff, since it takes up a lot of time, at least in the previous videos, so I wanted to have more invasions in this one and just keep this build stuff pretty brief. I think at this point of the game's lifespan, if you're actually even watching my channel, you're probably already well versed in the locations. You don't need me to go over that you want to wear. You know, the cat ring, if you're up here in the bridges, blah blah blah. You know what to do. Okay, so the build. Ida the Crowling, level 56, plus 6 reinforcement. Here are the stats. I have just enough strength and dex to wield the weapons. I do have to two-hand the scythe. I had to sacrifice some points in strength there to get at the level I wanted. I could probably go up a little bit higher if I wanted to, but this was working pretty okay. I still might take this character up a little bit, I think. I don't know. 56 is a weird range for the levels I want to invade at. I might get a lot more Arithiel than I do the Corvian settlement, so I don't know what the right range is for this area. Sometimes I'll see people way higher going in here, so maybe I could do to go a little bit higher. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the equipment doesn't really change, you know. I do sometimes put the Lightning Crow Talons on, you know. By the way, at plus 6, okay, some of these weapons lightning infused. Where is it? Yeah, look at that. S rating. But I'll tell you something, this scythe was at S rating probably around +4 or +5, so let me tell you something, I think it's a lore thing, okay? Not all of them apply. I mean, A is pretty good for the quills, if you ask me. I had the Biden, and didn't use the Biden, but I had the Biden. And I had the Rose of Arandiel, which I didn't use either, but I have it. And I had some whips I didn't use. And I wanted to use the Keith's chime, since there's a Velka relation to the Painted World and the Corvians, and this game sort of took all the Velka stuff from Dark Souls 1 and applied it to Londor. So I don't know if that was on purpose. I don't know if Londor, you know, appropriated Velka's history and incorporated it into their own culture and then disavowed it so that, you know, no one would remember. But the Corvians remember. So, but I couldn't use it. I couldn't use this one because of the stats. I don't have any intelligence. I have low intelligence, so I couldn't do it. So I was just using the Saint's Talisman, which I thought was a pretty good alternative. But again, I never actually used the life on site. It's really more for just character lore. I wanted it there so I could always see it, so I knew who my girl was, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I would say these weapons. Oh, I'm sorry. These weapons are probably better off for dex builds. Of course, they're better for dex builds. Even the scythe, I'd say, is better, and I think the talons as well. But I gotta say, the talons and the quills, pretty good for faith. Pretty good for faith. A rating's not bad at +6. The scythe, S rating at +6. That's pretty awesome. And I could only go higher if I chose to level up. So, you know, the latent faith on the Corvian weapons, I don't think is an accident. You know, the knife, of course, doesn't apply to this, but it's got bad stats all around. So, look at that E and E for strength and dex. That C is high for that weapon. So, you know, put that in perspective. But I think that says a lot about the Corvians, with their latent relation to faith, and the fact that you get shriving stones from them. You know, lore. I gotta get a better parry shield. I think I've been using this for too many builds. It's getting kind of boring to see, but I like it. I like it. Yeah, I do have some bolts. Didn't use a crossbow, but I have a crossbow. And these two alternated, but I usually like this for my lore characters. And then this I use just to save myself 5 points on the stat spread, so I can get the 40 faith, and that helped. And so did these, the lightning urns. They were good too. I had to go all the way through the game at level 56, which is easy. It's harder to do at low level, but yeah, don't mess up Grey Rat's quest. That might suck. I'm pretty sure it's where you get them, right? Grey Rat's got these? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Now I didn't use a Covenant. I didn't use one. I probably could have done Warriors of Sunlight for medals, gotten more lightning, but I didn't. And yeah, that's that.